Show us your faithfulness. Show us your trustworthiness. Show us your honesty. Prove us wrong. We desperately need.
Good morning, Asia, and good evening, America. You're watching Wild DNA, the Saturday edition. I am Eric Njoka. We will start with the latest on the Israel-Hamas war, where Israeli forces continue to operate in Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City, where thousands of patients, medical staff and displaced people remain trapped. The health system has collapsed across the Gaza Strip, just one element of a wider humanitarian crisis. Israel has begun to allow fuel to enter the territory, but Palestinians say it is not nearly enough to meet humanitarian needs and prevent disease. We also have sports and entertainment coming your way shortly. Let's begin with the headlines. White House condemns social media platform X CEO Elon Musk for promoting quote-unquote hideous anti-Semitic conspiracy theory on his platform. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan lashes out at Israel during Germany visit, says attacks on children and hospitals have no place in Jewish holy book. ChatGPT maker OpenAI's board sacks co-founder and CEO Sam Altman after a review found out that he was not consistently candid in his communications with the board. OpenAI President Greg Brockman also resigns. Russia's Justice Ministry files motion with country's Supreme Court to ban activities of what it calls international LGBT public movement as extremist. Rescuers trying to reach 40 workers trapped in collapsed highway tunnel in Indian state of Uttarakhand suspend work temporarily after hearing sudden cracking sound and a snag in drilling machine. And the stage is all set for the grand finale of the ODI World Cup. Hosts India take on Australia at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad, and the preparations are in full swing for a spectacle of an event. When Israeli Defense Forces began their ground operation in the Gaza Strip, they asked the residents to flee southwards for safety. But now Israel's offensive has extended to the south of Gaza. Israel says Hamas exists in the south and the troops will hit Hamas targets wherever they find them.
צה"ל פועל עם מטרות מאוד מאוד ברורות למלחמה הזאת. הפעולה הזאת היא גם פעולה קרקעית, היא פעולה מהאוויר, היא פעולה מהים. אנחנו נחושים להמשיך ולהתקדם. הדבר הזה יקרה בכל מקום שבו נמצא חמאס, והוא נמצא גם בדרום הרצועה. הוא יקרה בזמן, במקום ובתנאים שהכי טובים לצה"ל.
Residents are attempting to flee northern Gaza in large numbers. On your screens are satellite images that depict the unprecedented scale of the exodus. These images indicate a more dire phase in the war. Meanwhile, Israeli strikes continue to hit civilian infrastructure. These include refugee camps. Displaced Gazans are in agony as they have nowhere to go.
أعرفك عن حالي لا مبالاة في التعريف زي مواطن من هالبني آدمين اللي هجوا من الجنوب طلبوا من سكان غزة من احنا من أهل المواطنين من غزة قالوا تفضلوا على الجنوب تفضلنا على الجنوب هلقيت طلب يقول تعالوا الجنوب ارحلوا وين نروح احنا بدنا نفهم احنا وين رايحين بالضبط ما حدش فاهم ايش الدنيا الحكام العرب الدنيا الحياة بطل في حاجة حدا نفهمها بالمرة ايش فيه.
Hamas, on the other hand, claimed to show its response to Israeli strikes. It released a video showing its military wing targeting and firing arms at a house where Israeli soldiers were holed up. Other visuals show rockets fired from the Gaza Strip towards Israel and the Iron Dome system intercepting them. As the fighting continues, Israel has agreed to allow 2 fuel trucks to enter the Gaza Strip each day. However, this quantity is being described as the bare minimum for around 2.3 million Gazans. Israel says the fuel will be allowed for Gaza's communications system and water and even sewage services. Separately, talks around the war continue. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was on a visit to Germany. He met German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and discussions on the war divided the two leaders. Erdogan lashed out at Israel for its Gaza onslaught, while Scholz said Israel's right to defend itself must not be questioned. The Turkish president also said that he is in fact leading the fight against antisemitism.
Bizim için bu noktada bölgede Musevi, Hristiyan, Müslüman bu ayrımın olmaması gerekir. Antisemitizme karşı da bir mücadele verildiyse bu mücadeleyi dünyada ilk veren lider ben oldum.
Back in Israel, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant hosted his French counterpart in Tel Aviv on Friday. The two discussed the humanitarian issue of the hostages held by Hamas. The duo also shared operational achievements and developments on the ground. Over in the United States, President Joe Biden again pressed for the immediate release of hostages during talks with the Qatari leadership. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Minister Benny Gantz on Friday. Borrell was trying to achieve a balancing act as he expressed solidarity with both sides. He also reflected an attempt to stick to a middle ground acceptable to all 27 EU countries who have deeply rooted differences about the wider Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Bahrain's Crown Prince has called for a hostage trade between Hamas and Israel in order to achieve a break in hostilities. The prince condemned the October 7th Hamas attack and the Israeli air campaign that followed. He also said that security would not be realized without a two-state solution, in which he described the United States' role as crucial. It is now day 43 of the Israel-Hamas war that has for weeks become a full-blown siege on Gaza. Gaza's health ministry, which is run by Hamas, has released new numbers which quantify the scale of destruction that Israeli forces have caused in the region. The data released by the Ministry of Health has revealed that more than 58% of housing units in the besieged enclave have been destroyed by the IDF's airstrikes. In absolute numbers, this translates to over 276,000 homes that have been reduced to rubble. And that's not all. Military operations by Israeli defense forces have displaced at least 183,000 Palestinians from their homes. This according to the latest figures released by Hamas. The militant group has also revealed that 12,000 people have now been killed by Israeli airstrikes. Of the total death toll, over 4,700 are children. Meanwhile, the Al-Qassam Brigade, which is the military wing of Hamas, released a statement with details of hostages taken captive during the October 7th assault. The statement says, and I'm quoting them, "We hereby announce that some of the hostages have been transferred to healthcare facilities for necessary medical intervention, given the gravity of their health conditions and with the aim of safeguarding their lives. A recent instance involves the detainee identified as Aryeh Zalman, who underwent intensive medical care. Subsequent to his recovery, he was returned to his place of detention, tragically succumbing to panic attacks induced by recurrent bombings nearby." A documentation substantiating these events will be disseminated in due course. As a humanitarian crisis continues to spiral in Gaza, Palestinian Health Ministry claims that the northern region of the enclave is facing a critical shortage of food. Since November 7th, no bakeries have been active due to the lack of fuel, water, and wheat flour and structural damage. Wheat flour is reportedly no longer available in the markets in Gaza. Pope Francis is set to meet the kin and relatives of hostages held by Palestinian militant group Hamas, along with a group of Palestinians. This is after he called for the creation of humanitarian corridors and a two-state solution in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. According to the Vatican, with these meetings, the Pope wants to show his spiritual closeness to the suffering of both. During the meetings, Pope Francis will hear the grievances of both sides as part of a humanitarian gesture. Pope's meetings will be held in Vatican City on November 22nd, where he will meet various officials of the Catholic Church to discuss the Church's mission and operations. The Pontiff's latest initiative comes after he expressed concerns over the Israel-Hamas war and appealed to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe on October 18th. On November 1st, in an interview to Italy's state TV channel, the Pope also called for a two-state solution and advocated for a special status to Jerusalem. Meanwhile, civilians in Gaza continue to struggle for essentials as hospitals are being shelled, coupled with power and communication outages. On November 17th, United Nations aid deliveries to Gaza were suspended due to fuel shortages. This added to ongoing humanitarian crises in the Gaza Strip. Israel has been relentlessly bombing Gaza following the October 7th attacks, in which Hamas's militants took around 240 Israelis and foreign nationals hostage. The White House has condemned the owner of social media platform X, Elon Musk, for abhorrent promotion of anti-Semitism. The White House was reacting to a post by Musk in which he replied to an anti-Semitic post on X with the words, "You have said the actual truth." The White House accused Elon Musk of repeating a hideous anti-Semitic lie on his social media site X this week, calling it an abhorrent promotion of anti-Semitic and racist hate that runs against our core values as Americans. Responding to the comment by Elon Musk, White House spokesperson Andrew Bates said, and I quote, "It is unacceptable to repeat the hideous lie behind the most fatal act of anti-Semitism in American history at any time, let alone 1 month after the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust." Interestingly, a recent report by the organization Media Matters for America found advertisements from IBM and other corporations running on X next to posts that praise Hitler and the Nazi Party. This is true for at least 5 major brands: Apple, Bravo, Oracle, Xfinity, and of course IBM. And now advertisers are fleeing social media platform X. This over concerns about their ads showing up next to pro-Nazi content and hate speech on the site in general. IBM said this week that it stopped advertising on X after a report said its ads were appearing alongside material praising Nazis. The Walt Disney Company will also be pausing advertising on X. The European Union's executive branch said separately that it's pausing its advertising on X and other social media platforms in part because of a surge in hate speech. Meanwhile, Lionsgate Entertainment has suspended advertising on the social media platform, and so has Apple. Russian lawmakers have filed a lawsuit to the nation's Supreme Court to outlaw the LGBTQ+ international movement as extremist. This is the latest crippling blow against the already troubled LGBTQ community in the increasingly conservative country. Russia's Justice Ministry said it has lodged an administrative legal claim with the Supreme Court to recognize the international LGBTQ public movement as extremist and ban its activity in Russia. The ministry said that Russia's Supreme Court has scheduled a hearing to consider the lawsuit. It will take place on November 30th. The ministry did not specify whether it was seeking the closure of any specific groups or organizations, or if the designation would apply more broadly to the LGBTQ+ community, causes, and even individuals. Interestingly, this comes after Russian President Vladimir Putin said the LGBTQ+ community is a part of the society. Speaking at the Cultural Forum in St. Petersburg, Putin said it's required to show the life of the LGBTQ community when competing at cultural contests in Western countries.
Да, действительно, мы видим, что на всяких конкурсах там в западных странах для того, чтобы что-то выиграть, нужно либо рассказать, написать, либо показать из жизни сексуальных меньшинств, трансгендеров и каких-то еще трансформаторов, много всяких названий. И они тоже, эти темы и эти люди, имеют право на то, чтобы выигрывать, показывать, рассказывать, потому что это тоже часть общества.
The decision has attracted condemnation as well. The head of the Sphere human rights group, which advocates for the Russian LGBTQ community, has criticized the announcement. Not only this, Amnesty International's director for Eastern Europe and Central Asia has denounced the deeply cynical move aimed at dehumanizing and persecuting the entire LGBTQI community. Since launching the Ukraine offensive, Russia has accelerated its campaign against LGBTQ groups. In July, lawmakers banned medical intervention and administrative procedures that allowed people to change gender. Last November, Russian lawmakers also approved a bill banning all forms of LGBTQ propaganda, a move with far-reaching consequences for book publishing and film distribution. Same-sex marriage was also effectively outlawed in July 2020 by a constitutional amendment stipulating marriage is a union between a man and a woman. The country passed a notorious ban on so-called gay propaganda in 2013. Initially, it was only applied to the content available to children, but has since been expanded. Activists said they fear for the safety and well-being of transgender people in Russia. Sam Altman wanted to take his company OpenAI to the next level, but in a twist of fate, he finds himself out of his own company. Yes, ChatGPT maker OpenAI has fired Altman. The news has sent shockwaves across the tech world, which sees the OpenAI CEO as a quote-unquote human face of generative AI. Even employees were caught off guard, discovering the news from an internal announcement and the company's blog. OpenAI's technology head, Mira Murati, will serve as interim CEO until a permanent CEO is appointed. Murati joined OpenAI in 2018 and oversaw the launch of ChatGPT. OpenAI said in a statement, and I quote, Altman's departure follows a deliberative review process by the board, which concluded that he was not consistently candid in his communications with the board, hindering its ability to exercise its responsibilities. Shortly after OpenAI announced Altman's sacking, the former CEO posted on X, to complicate matters for the ChatGPT maker, its president, Greg Brockman, put in his papers after Altman's sacking. Backed by billions of dollars from Microsoft, OpenAI kicked off the generative AI craze last November by releasing ChatGPT, which became one of the world's fastest growing softwares. Trained on data, generative AI can create fresh human-like content, helping users churn out term papers, complete science homework, and even write novels. And remaining with the news on Sam Altman's sacking, let's turn our focus on his interim successor, Mira Murati. Born to Albanian parents, Murati graduated from Dartmouth College with an engineering degree. Murati began her career at Zodiac Aerospace before spending 3 years at Tesla as a senior product manager. Prior to joining OpenAI in 2018, she worked at tech firm Leap Motion. At OpenAI, she quickly became the technology head and led the development of ChatGPT. Time now for news making headlines in the world of entertainment. Just days after success at the Latin Grammys, Colombian pop idol Shakira is set to go on trial in Barcelona on Monday for allegedly cheating Spain's tax office out of 14.5 million euros. Prosecutors are seeking a jail term of 8 years and 2 months and a fine of nearly $24 million for the 46-year-old singer. She now lives in Miami with her 2 sons, Milan and Sasha. Shakira has denied any wrongdoing and turned down a plea deal with prosecutors. The case centers on where the singer, whose hit singles include Hips Don't Lie, Wherever Whenever, and the 2010 World Cup song Waka Waka, lived in Spain between 2012 and 2014. After winning actor, Oscar-winning actress Michelle Yeoh received an honorary doctorate from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. In a speech, the Everything, Everywhere, All at Once actor stressed on the connection between cinema and science. Expressing her gratitude, the actress said, and I quote, "I am profoundly moved to accept this degree today and also to celebrate the communality of our two worlds. Please know that just how you might be fascinated by the movies are equally as fascinated by you." Celebrated Hollywood actress Jane Fonda has launched a mentoring and youth development program aimed at preventing teenage pregnancies in Georgia. The program aims to work with teenage boys in foster care and those involved with the juvenile justice system or struggling in school. For those unaware, the Oscar-winning actress founded a Georgia campaign for adolescent pregnancy prevention in 1995. And in sports at this hour, the 2023 World Cup final is set. Hosts India will take on Australia for the biggest prize in cricket on Sunday at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad. 20 years ago, the Aussies cemented their status as the best team in the world with a comprehensive win in Johannesburg. But now the tables have turned. India enter the final as favourites, while the five-time champions are the underdogs.
23rd March 2003. India had reached the promised land of the World Cup final after 20 years. A billion hearts dreamt again of Sourav Ganguly emulating the great Kapil Dev. Their opponents that day were defending champions Australia, who had inflicted a massive hiding in the group stage game, and the script stayed the same. Ricky Ponting's magnificent innings of 140 not out led the Aussies to their second straight World Cup crown, a title they would retain 4 years later. Fast forward to 2023, Australia find themselves in an 8th World Cup final, but this time it is their opponents who have been an unstoppable force. Just like Ponting's side in 2003, India have won 10 straight matches heading into the title clash, dominating with both bat and ball.
Feels great, I mean, the way our batting, bowling and fielding, the way we have dominated in this World Cup, it's just as a player to be able to play with all those players sitting in the dressing room, it's just been a magnificent run for us.
India's campaign in 2003 is almost remarkably similar to Australia's in 2023. Back then, India had lost their group clash against the star-studded Australians before going on an 8-match winning streak to reach the final. The same number of matches this Australian side has won after opening defeats to India and South Africa.
That's what World Cups are about. You want to take on the best throughout, and we certainly come up against a team that have obviously led from the front through the tournament and they're undefeated. So we played them in the first game of the tournament. Now we get to take them on in the last. So what a place to be at the end of a World Cup.
The similarities don't end there. The great Sachin Tendulkar was the top run scorer at the 2003 edition with 673 runs. And this time too, an Indian is top of the charts, and it is Tendulkar's heir, Virat Kohli, who has taken the tournament by storm, going past the Little Masters tally of 49 ODI centuries and breaking another one of Tendulkar's world records by scoring 711 runs in the campaign so far.
Sport remembers winners and barely has time for those who fall at the final hurdle. Johan Cruyff's great Dutch team never won the Football World Cup, and it is Pelé's Brazil of 1970 who are regarded as the greatest World Cup side ever. India have gone through this campaign like an express train, much like the German football team in 2014. It is fitting that standing in their way of eternal glory are Australia, themselves contenders for greatest World Cup side ever. In Ahmedabad with video journalist Neeraj Patel, this is Digvijay Singhdeo for WION.
Thank you for watching this edition of Wild DNA, the Saturday edition. With me, Eric Njoka. This is WION Wild is One. Stay with us.
He changed cricket forever with an update.
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
Hostilities have broken out between Israel and Palestine, and the tensions that had been gathering steam over the course of the last several weeks and months.
The siren has gone off. I don't know if you can hear in the background what's going on. I'm going into the shelter now. So it's a very, very serious situation here across Israel. It's a state of emergency.
The United States stands with Israel.
Well, we are starting this broadcast with a developing story from West Asia, where Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas has launched a war against the state of Israel.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
A new drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
Watch Gravitas.
And thanks for tuning in.
We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hello, welcome to This World. Vladimir Amelyan joins us from Kiev, and he is currently on the front line fighting Russian troops.
We believe that the world should be ruled by democracies.
I was interviewing you on television a couple of weeks back.
That's right.
And you said, if you really want to understand Jerusalem, why don't you come here and see it?
And you came?
Here I am. Mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting. Why this cannot be fixed?
There are 425 million guns in the United States, which is more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being singled out unfairly.
Defend our nation. You are saying we could have a cure for cancer.
We'll have treatments for many cancers in this decade, and they're going to come from India.
Downside is that it could potentially wipe us out. But let's start with the upside first.
The upsides are absolutely enormous. The potential uses of this are almost unlimited.
I only discovered auto-GPTs about a week ago and started writing about them. And after I started writing about them, Jeff Bezos followed me on Twitter, and all kinds of crazy amounts of people have been contacting us.
The show where we get you the week's biggest stories from around this world. What is the India story? It's the story of the world's biggest democracy.
We are developing the road infrastructure. In the end of 24, it will be equivalent to the road infrastructure of USA.
We have now entered the growth phase. And I believe that the growth rate in India is going to be exponential.
Two narratives of Indian story. which need to be brought center stage.
Every week, the India story will bring the most incisive analysis, the most authoritative voices.
India will be a significant pole in the universe of AI going forward.
India is walking tall, India's stature is different, India's voice is being heard.
And the biggest newsmakers.
This is just a start. Tokyo, we won one bronze. Paris, we won a rocket. Good to see that, women cricket is getting more excited and everybody is looking up to that.
And these stories need to be told, and they are guided by the compass of their conscience.
From India, for the world, the India Story, the show for the global citizen.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching WION World is One with me, Aditi Singh. Let's get you all the top stories we are tracking at this hour. First, the headlines. ChatGPT maker OpenAI's board sacks co-founder and CEO Sam Altman after a review found out that he was not consistently candid in his communications with the board. OpenAI president Greg Brockman also resigns. White House condemns social media platform ex-CEO Elon Musk for promoting quote-unquote hideous anti-Semitic conspiracy theory on his platform. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan lashes out at Israel during Germany visit, says attacks on children in hospitals have no place in Jewish holy book. Russia's Justice Ministry files motion with country's Supreme Court to ban activities of what it calls international LGBT public movement as extremist. Rescuers trying to reach 40 workers trapped in collapsed highway tunnel in Indian state of Uttarakhand suspend work temporarily after hearing sudden cracking sound and snag in drilling machine. Now the stage is all set for the grand finale of the ODI World Cup. Hosts India take on Australia at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad, and the preparations are in full swing for a spectacle of an event. What happened when the US president met his Chinese counterpart? The two leaders met on the sidelines of APEC summit. The power tussle between the two nations, who have spent years imposing sanctions on each other, was on full display. Now let us get you the moments which made the headlines. From sharing important discussions on military cooperation to photo ops, moments from the meeting of both leaders have taken the internet by storm. At the summit, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken kept his gaze focused on President Joe Biden when the latter first addressed China's president at the table. Now, this was when Biden said that the two nations might not have seen eye to eye on various issues, but have always spoken to each other in a candid manner.
It does not veer into conflict, and we also have to manage it responsibly.
Now, one of the most viral moments was when America's top diplomat flinched with a disapproving nod when the US president went a little off script and described his Chinese counterpart as a dictator. This video has gone viral on the internet. The Russian deputy UN ambassador also took a potshot. After 4-hour talks which aimed to prevent growing tensions between the world's largest economies, the two world leaders got into a candid chat about presidential cars. The US president peeked inside Xi Jinping's limo and then gestured to his own car, calling his vehicle the Beast.
They call it the Beast.
The White House condemned the owner of social media platform X, Elon Musk, for abhorrent promotion of anti-Semitism. Now, the White House was reacting to a post by Musk in which he replied to an anti-Semitic post on X with the words, "You have said the actual truth." Now, the White House accused Elon Musk of repeating a hideous anti-Semitic lie on his social media site X this week, calling it an abhorrent promotion of anti-Semitic and racist hate that runs against our core values as Americans. Responding to the comment by Elon Musk, White House spokesperson said, and I quote, "It is unacceptable to repeat the hideous lie behind the most fatal act of anti-Semitism in American history at any time, let alone 1 month after the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust," unquote. Now, interestingly, a recent report by the organization Media Matters for America found advertisements from IBM and other corporations running on X next to posts that praise Hitler and the Nazi Party. Now, this is true for at least 5 major brands: Apple, Bravo, Oracle, Xfinity, and of course, IBM. And now advertisers are fleeing social media platform X, and this over concerns about their ads showing up next to pro-Nazi content and hate speech on the site in general. IBM said that this week it has stopped advertising on X after a report said its ads were appearing alongside material praising Nazis. The Walt Disney Company will also be pausing advertising on X, and the European Union's executive branch said separately that it's pausing its advertising on X and other social media platforms in part because of a surge in hate speech. Meanwhile, Lionsgate Entertainment has suspended advertising on the social media platform, and so has Apple. Shifting focus now to the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. When Israeli defense forces began their ground operation in the Gaza Strip, they asked the residents to flee south for safety. But now Israel's offensive has extended to the south of Gaza, and Israel says Hamas exists in the south as well, and the troops will hit Hamas targets wherever they find them.
צה"ל פועל עם מטרות מאוד מאוד ברורות למלחמה הזאת. הפעולה הזאת היא גם פעולה קרקעית, היא פעולה מהאוויר, היא פעולה מהים. אנחנו נחושים להמשיך ולהתקדם. הדבר הזה יקרה בכל מקום שבו נמצא חמאס, והוא נמצא גם בדרום הרצועה. הוא יקרה בזמן, במקום ובתנאים שהכי טובים לצה"ל.
Residents are attempting to flee southern Gaza in large numbers now, and on your screens are satellite images that depict the unprecedented scale of this exodus. These images indicate a more dire phase in the war right now. Meanwhile, Israeli strikes continue to hit civilian infrastructure, and these include refugee camps. Displaced Gazans are in agony as they have nowhere to go.
أعرفك عن حالة لا مبالاة في التعريف زينا مواطن من هالبنادمين اللي هجوا من الجنوب. طلبوا من سكان غزة من احنا من أهل المواطنين من غزة قلنا تفضلوا على الجنوب. تفضلنا على الجنوب. هلقيت طلب يقولوا تعالوا الجنوب ارحلوا. وين نروح؟ احنا بدنا نفهم احنا وين رايحين بالضبط. ما حدش فاهم ايش الدنيا. الحكام العرب الدنيا الحياة بطل في حاجة حدا نفهمها بالمرة. ايش فيه؟
Hamas, on the other hand, claimed to show its response to Israeli strikes. It released a video showing its military wing targeting and firing arms at a house where Israeli soldiers were holed up. Other visuals show rockets fired from the Gaza Strip towards Israel and the Iron Dome system intercepting them. Now, as the fighting continues, Israel has agreed to allow 2 fuel trucks to enter the Gaza Strip each day. However, this quantity is being described as the bare minimum for around 2.3 million Gazans. Israel says that the fuel would be allowed for Gaza's communication system and water and sewage services. Now, separately, talks around the war continue. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was on a visit to Germany and he met German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and discussions on the war divided the two leaders. Erdogan lashed out at Israel for its Gaza onslaught, while Scholz said that Israel's right to defend itself must not be questioned. And the Turkish president also said that he's in fact leading the fight against anti-Semitism.
Bizim için bu noktada bölgede Musevi, Hristiyan, Müslüman bu ayrımın olmaması gerekir. Antisemitizme karşı da bir mücadele verildiyse bu mücadeleyi dünyada ilk veren lider ben oldum.
Now, back in Israel, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant hosted his French counterpart in Tel Aviv on Friday, and the two discussed the humanitarian issue of the hostages held by Hamas. The duo also shared operational achievements and developments on the ground. Over in the US, President Joe Biden again pressed for the immediate release of hostages during talks with the Qatari leadership. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Minister Benny Gantz on Friday. Borrell was trying to achieve a balancing act as he expressed solidarity with both sides. He also reflected an attempt to stick to a middle ground acceptable to all 27 EU countries who have deeply rooted differences about the wider Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Bahrain's Crown Prince has called for a hostage trade between Hamas and Israel in order to achieve a break in hostilities. The prince unequivocally condemned the October 7th Hamas attack and the Israeli air campaign that followed. He also said that security would not be realized without a two-state solution, in which he described the United States' role as crucial in achieving. Now, is Pakistan supplying weapons to Israel? Yes, if a report is to be believed. The South Asian country that has been condemning Israel while championing the Palestinian cause could be supplying weapons to Israel in its bombardment of Gaza. Look at these visuals on your screen. Pakistanis are marching through the streets in solidarity with the people of Gaza, chanting slogans against Israel and the Western powers. But now an account on the X platform has claimed that Islamabad could be supplying 155mm shells to Israel. 155mm shells are the same artillery pieces that Israel has been firing at Hamas positions near the Gaza border. Israel has been sourcing these weapons from other countries. But how are these weapons reaching Israel? The report on the social media platform claims that a British plane first flew from Bahrain to Noor Khan base at Rawalpindi in Pakistan, and then again from the Pakistani Air Force base to Bahrain. The plane then left for Duqm, a city in Oman, en route to Cyprus. Now, from there on, the weapons were exported to Israel. Experts also say that 155mm artillery provides a good balance between range and warhead size, and Pakistan's ordnance factory produces these shells in bulk, and these shells often end up in many countries that use military equipment sourced from the United States. Now, the claim could not be verified independently, but this is not the first time that Pakistan has been accused of fueling war activities. Earlier, it had been accused of supplying weapons to Ukrainian troops against Russia, an allegation Islamabad has repeatedly denied, though. The 155mm artillery ammunition has been critical to the war in Ukraine. They are used in howitzer systems, and at one point, Kyiv had been firing around 7,000 to 9,000 shells a day. And the report of Pakistan supplying weapons to Israel came hours before the arrival of British Army chief to the country. And so far, both Pakistan and United Kingdoms are yet to confirm or deny the reports. Now let's move to another war taking place currently, the Russia-Ukraine war. It's been over 630 days since the war has been raging on in Eastern Europe, and now the fighting has been concentrated around the Dnipro River. Here's a sum up of what has been happening on the battlefield. Russian defense forces say that they are inflicting heavy losses on Ukrainian troops at the river, and this comes after Ukraine claimed to have successfully established a foothold on the Russian-controlled eastern bank. However, Moscow says that Ukrainian forces are still on the western bank of the river and lost over 460 men, 2 tanks and 17 vehicles. While Ukraine says its troops are engaged in fierce fighting as it tries to push back Russians across the river in Kherson. Now, if the claims are true, this could be a major success for Kyiv, which has not been able to garner any significant gain to turn the tide of war. Ukrainian president also posted few pictures showing Ukrainian troops on boats on the eastern bank of the river, and Kyiv said that it has managed to gain a foothold on several bridgeheads, and this could clear a way for a sustained offensive in the south and towards Crimean Peninsula. Meanwhile, Russia continues to shell Ukrainian towns and villages across the river, forcing civilian evacuations in the region. The governor of Kherson says that 1 person has been killed in the latest shelling, while at least 3 deaths were reported the day before. Now, as the winter descends upon the region, Ukraine is bracing up for increased Russian airstrikes across the region. Ukrainian president warned that Moscow is likely stockpiling missiles to hit energy facilities in the coming months. And last year's Ukraine suffered crippling blackouts after Russian strikes hit power stations and electrical grid. Kyiv has urged its allies abroad to bolster its supply of air defense systems. Shifting focus to Sudan, it has been over 7 months since the war erupted in Sudan. Pitting Sudan's army chief against his former deputy Rapid Support Forces (RSF) commander in the latest United Nations has issued a series of warnings, saying that the armed conflict is now spreading to new regions, and the agency has said that food for Sudanese refugees is running out. The World Food Programme has altered that food aid for more than 500,000 refugees who have fled from Sudan to Chad will run out next month without extra funding.
Thanks also to the donors who have already participated in this operation. But it's just to tell them that by December, there is no more assistance. We have no more. So we really need an urgent funding for this crisis. It's urgent because we need time to purchase the food, to bring the food on the site, to bring the food at the border, and to make sure the people will get at least a meal a day, Till now, more than 500,000 refugees have crossed from Sudan into Chad ever since the war began. Now, many have fled from West Darfur, where ethnically driven violence and mass killings erupted again this month. And according to the UN, more than 20 million out of a total population of 49 million in Sudan are facing high levels of acute fuel insecurity. We shift focus now to Myanmar, where fresh clashes have erupted in South Asia's Myanmar. And as per the UN, renewed fighting this week between Myanmar's military and an ethnic minority armed group has displaced more than 26,000 people in the country's western Rakhine state.
And according to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, since Monday there have been at least 11 killings in the military shelling of the Uttarakhand army. Meanwhile, 5 European countries have teamed up to join the genocide case at the International Court of Justice. Denmark, France, Germany, the Netherlands and Britain have accused Myanmar of committing genocide against Rohingya community. And according to the International Court of Justice, Maldives has filed a separate declaration accusing Myanmar of genocide. Now, in March 2017, the United Nations Human Rights Council established the independent international fact-finding mission on Myanmar military takeover. It allegedly drove more than 700,000 Rohingya into Bangladesh, had included genocidal acts, and on the other hand, Myanmar has denied such accusations. In another stepping stone for Indian Space Research Organization, it will now be collaborating with its US counterpart to map the world every 12 days in the first ever satellite developed by the two in collaboration. NASA-ISRO's synthetic aperture radar is set to be launched after a few more tests in the first quarter of 2024, and the aimed timeline for the mission is that of 3 years. Now, depending on the stability and the success of the mission, it may be extended as there is enough full fuel aboard to support at least 5 years of operations. Now, NASA has said that the NISA project is better than anything that has flown in the past. The mission will survey the Earth's land and ice caps every 12 days. To provide a multi-year timescale insight into Earth's change, the instruments on board the ambitious mission are capable of mapping changes as small as a centimeter on the face of the Earth. WION's senior correspondent Siddharth MP tells us more about the mission's progress and what lies ahead. Take a look.
NASA-ISRO synthetic aperture radar is a highly sophisticated Earth observation satellite being built by India and the US. This is the first of its kind mission where the Earth will be mapped every 12 days, that too twice every 12 days, in a highly sophisticated manner. And this is going to be in extremely high detail and unprecedented detail, including Earth's landmass, ice and forest cover. All of this will be mapped to give better insights into climate change and Earth's natural phenomena. This is a satellite that's being put together at the U.R. Rao Satellite Center in Bengaluru. Earlier this year, around March, the components for this satellite were flown in from the US. They're being integrated in Bengaluru as we speak. And also most recently, JPL shared an update. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory said that the satellite has undergone several tests and then they've passed them very successfully. These include tests to tolerate vibration and shock and the high noise levels at the time of launch of a rocket. In addition to that, the satellite was also tested for its communications ability, and so that its two frequencies, the L-band and S-band radars, can work in harmony without interfering with each other. So all these tests are completed. Of course, a couple of tests more are required. Another important test that was carried out was the satellite's ability to withstand varying temperatures. So out there in Earth orbit, the temperatures can go anywhere between minus 10 degrees centigrade to plus 50 degrees. It's a variation of 60 degrees. So the satellite is also being tested to be able to withstand